Yo, what's going on, E7 fam? Pat here, back to talk about the November 23rd balance adjustment preview that was just shown earlier this morning over on Stove. You already know what it is with these Epic 7 balance adjustment previews. I'm going to give you my 2 cents on the changes. We're going to talk about where the character is before the balance adjustment preview, talk about the changes, and where I think they're going to end up after the fact. I want to apologize, by the way, in advance for any kind of nasally sounding words that come out of my mouth. I am not exactly in the best shape right now. I'm feeling really under the weather, a little bit worse than yesterday, but hopefully I can beat this thing by the weekend. Without any further ado, let's talk about who we're going to be discussing in this video. We have Lone Crescent Bologna, Death Dealer Ray, Aramintha, Benevolent Roman, and my girl SERILA. For artifacts, Bastion of Perlucia and Durandal, and we're going to also talk about the sleep status effect. So, first up, let's talk about Lone Crescent Bologna, who is a character that I think needs literally no changes. I am baffled that Lone Crescent Bologna is on the balance adjustment preview list when Blood Moon Haste is literally sitting right there next to Judge Cisse on the bench. Those characters are both unplayable. Meanwhile, Lone Crescent Bologna was piloted by Winter Wish at the Epic 7 2023 World Championship to a 3rd place finish. I'm sorry, but a character carrying you to 3rd place at Worlds suggests this character does not need any kind of balance adjustment whatsoever, unless it's in the reverse direction, perhaps. And that might actually be what we got, because the changes here for Lone Crescent Bologna are baffling. First off, Soul Burn was changed. Instead of decreasing the cooldown of the S3 by 2 turns for the cost of 10 souls, it is now increases the damage on the S1 for the cost of 10 souls. Considering Quixotic Crescent was the main focus of Lone Crescent Bologna in the late game, it's what gave her a lot of her power and made her this insane hyper carry. That's gone now. You could use Quixotic Crescent, sure, to hit something for 25 to 30k damage plus, but it's not as spammable anymore as it used to be. So I'm really kind of puzzled as to why we made this change. It's kind of a step backwards on the character, if I'm being honest. I'd be curious to see what players like Winter Wish and Coven have to say about these changes to the character, because this character is basically like their waifu, their darling, their play every game character. So yeah, a very, very baffling change. Next up, we have the S2 Waxen Crescent. It now gives 20 Fighting Spirit when an ally is attacked as opposed to 15. So instead of 6 to 7 attacks to trigger your bat back, it's now 5, like Seaside Bologna, which I don't think I really like, because Seaside Bologna was like this guaranteed thing at 5, but Lone Crescent Bologna, while she was more hits to get to that point, she had the stronger S1, in my opinion, also the stronger S3. Her just having 20 Fighting Spirit a hit, so an even 5 hits, it kind of makes you realize how antiquated Seaside Bologna is as a character, and how she probably needs some buffs at this point in Epic 7's lifetime. Overall, positive change for the character. It does increase the damage of the character ever so slightly. And then finally, we have here on the S3 Quixotic Crescent, cooldown change from 4 turns to 3 turns. You acquire 2 souls as opposed to 3. You only get 20 Fighting Spirit now as opposed to 30, but the base damage is increased. And that's also puzzling, because again, this move can do 25 to 30k plus damage. This character was introduced to the world by one-tapping a 28k HP Proof of Valor Apocalypse Robbie. You mean to tell me that move needed a damage increase? Okay, Smilegate. I don't really get it, but sure. Overall, Lone Crescent Bologna feels to me like she might be a slightly better character than she was in the past, because, you're going to have more S2s coming out. Quixotic Crescent's going to hit a whole heck of a lot harder, a bit earlier, but it comes at the expense of how spammable the move is and how frequently you'll be getting Vigor in the late game. So it's kind of like we made the early game better on the character at the expense of some of the late game stuff, which I don't, again, know how that's going to play out. It seems like it's better, but only somebody who's a true specialist like Coven or Winter Wish, I think, is going to really be able to speak to the changes on this character. Next up, we're going to talk about Death Dealer Ray here, who, like Lone Crest of Bologna, I think didn't really need anything, if I'm being honest. I know there are some people out there that feel like this character is kind of missing the mark, needs a couple of things here or there. But I'm fine with the character. The character got changed, and he kind of did his job. We were in an HP scaling bruiser meta with Apocalypse Robbie and friends, and then we had a bunch of injury characters come in. We have things now like Urban Shadow Shu. We had Sharoon. We had Death Dealer Ray with his first round of buffs, who was very, very good against those strategies. Well, guess what? Death Dealer Ray and friends was so good at what they were designed to do that they pushed out Apocalypse Robbie and friends from the format. So you don't really see HP scaling bruisers because they're particularly terrible into Death Dealer Ray and Sharoon and all this other stuff. If they make a resurgence, guess who's going to come back? Death Dealer Ray. Just because Death Dealer Ray isn't seeing a ton of play right now doesn't mean that the character is bad. He's really niche in what he's supposed to do. He's there to counter slow HP scaling teams. That's his job. I don't think he really needs any changes after that, if I'm being honest. So they changed this character almost entirely, right? So originally, the S1 was a sleep that detonated any venom stacks that was on the character, and you got one focus. Now, it is still a sleep, but a successful attack, meaning they don't dodge, deals additional damage equivalent to 40% of injuries inflicted on the target, and as you notice, you no longer gain one focus. So this character is just not a focus character anymore. Next up is the S2 Anatomical Mutation. It now does not have the increases combat radius of the caster by 50%. And then you still see it has the, it doesn't also have the 20% CR push on the team. Now it is just a 20% push for Ray himself. And they have changed how the Pestilence debuff works, which I'm not ever really a fan of. I don't really think you should change the mechanics of a debuff that much. We'll talk more about that with Sleep in a little bit. I just think it could be good, but I feel like it sometimes just creates confusion amongst players. Like, I think just like Sleep should always do what you'd expect Sleep to do. Stun should always do what you'd expect it to do. When Pestilence was introduced, it makes it so that auto attacks inflict venom. So now Pestilence is, after you attack, you inflict venom for one turn as opposed to 2 turns and then detonate them. So you actually get less venom overall, because previously it was 2 procs of venom that you could detonate off of Pestilence. Now it is 1 and it auto detonates. So that is a bit of a head scratcher. I don't actually know if this is a good change for the character, if I'm being honest with you. Like, 50% CR plus the 20% push on the team was very good. And obviously you want to start the fight with Anatomical Mutation to get Pestilence, because that's kind of the reason why you're playing it. You still will get to start the fight with Anatomical Mutation because of Cloud of Death, which we'll talk about in a second. But overall, this is I don't know if I'm really like super keen on this one. The cooldown was reduced, by the way, from 4 turns to 3 turns, because obviously you're going to get an extra turn guaranteed off of Cloud of Death, which I guess we'll talk about now. So, Cloud of Death previously required 5 focus to use, and it would sleep everyone, put 2 venom stacks on everyone, and then deal damage to you equal to 80% of the injuries on you. Basically, if you were max injury, this thing killed you. Straight up Cloud of Death just killed you. It was the win condition, you built towards it, and it gave Death Dealer Ray this very fun, interesting, and unique gameplay style. I'm unsure, with the changes to Cloud of Death, if that playstyle is actually maintained. So now it says, releases a miasma of fatal poison, dispelling 2 buffs from all enemies, and has a 100% chance to sleep them for 1 turn, and inflict venom for 2 turns, grants an extra turn to the caster. Again, I like the old Cloud of Death. I thought it had some interesting gameplay applications, and it felt like a pretty cool win condition to build towards. It's what made the character fun. Now, Cloud of Death is like a non-attack skill version of Sharoon's S3, which is honestly kind of better, especially when we factor in the changes to sleep that we'll be talking about at the end of the video. It just feels like they wanted Death Dealer Ray to be another answer to Hand Guy, And maybe just an answer to save your Auden for the reasons we're going to talk about with the sleep debuff at the very end of the video. He might be better. Like, Death Dealer Ray might be more usable in more scenarios because of this. But I think, again, it came at the cost of essentially taking away what made the character unique. And honestly, what made the character really fun. He could still be potentially very fun. I'm not somebody who plays him a ton. I'll be very curious, though, to talk to my guildmates because they love playing Death Dealer Raid to see how they feel about these changes. It's like Lone Crescent Bologna here. It kind of feels like it's a push, if I'm being honest. Next up is Aramintha, a character who has not been good pretty much ever at any point in the game's lifetime. So what does Aramintha need? Speed. Speed is the name of the game for this character if you ever want her to have any shot of being good in PvP. And I don't think even then, with general power creep, that she'll actually get there. So, the best thing you could do for her at that point is surprisingly what they gave her, which is you remove Detonate off of the S1. And I know that sounds really weird because, why would you ever get rid of Detonate? Or you get all the damage up front? Well, it's because the only really good place it feels like to play Aramintha is for Nightmare Raid. And you kind of can't choose her over other characters because she detonates. You could also potentially, I guess, use her in Rift if you didn't detonate the burn. So there's that going as well. But yeah, removing Detonate just gives her PvE applications. Sure, I guess. Catalyst now gives the 5% extra that it was getting from the exclusive equipment. Because the exclusive equipment now, if you jump down here to the bottom, it no longer gives 5% on S2. It just makes it so that you detonate on S1 now. So, yeah, they kind of did an old switcheroo. There's not really any true buffs for Aramintha. We just gave you the option of being like, hey, you could use this character in PvE now. And then we gave 20% more chance to stun on the S3 with Fire Pillar, which is nowhere near enough for this to actually be usable in PvP. And most PvE things are actually immune to stun, so yay, Aramintha is like probably a middling character for Rift now. I'm waiting for me to finish this video, go talk to Tristan and be like, actually, Aramintha is the best thing you can play now for X, Y, and Z. So I'm anticipating that to happen. But for the most part, Aramintha, to me, changes are largely superfluous. If you're somebody who is playing this character in Nightmare Raid, congratulations, she's better. Otherwise, it's a waste of a buff. Moving on now to Benevolent Roman. This is a really interesting character to buff, in my opinion. So Benevolent Roman, when he came out, he was actually a very good control character. I remember watching a lot of Deity back in the day. Deity was like the Benevolent Roman player. If you wanted to learn how to play Benevolent Roman, he was basically the guy to watch. And I remember people like my friend Welchie picked up Benevolent Roman, I was like, man, this character just seems insane. Fairly good stat line as a 4-star Taurus mage. She's got a lot of flexibility, very good control unit. And then AOL came out with the same stat line in a significantly more busted kit and completely changed the landscape of Epic 7. The rest is history. So, what does Benevolent Roman need? Something to distinguish himself from Angel of Light Angelica. She took the crown from this man, and he never got it back. So let's see what he got. So his S2 passive, High Mage's Might, it used to reduce the effect of decreased combat readiness debuffs on him by 100%, so you can't push him back. Now he is immune to silence, which is incredibly interesting because there is a character that is played like in 50% of games right now that has a silence and pushes you back, and his name is Zio. So Benevolent Roman, with these changes, could potentially be an anti-Zio opener once again. That's kind of where we're at right now. Zio can silence things like AOL, so you wouldn't really want to pick that into her. Now, you could pick Benevolent Roman into Zio comps and go, here is my hyper-fast opener. You can't really do anything about it. So it's another way to kind of interact with that character, aside from just the normal way you go about it, which is I just pick a bunch of dodge units and guiding light characters and just hope that I get there. So it's just another way we could kind of hopefully counter that character. The other thing that he got, which is incredibly scary, is on his S3 mana fundamentals. Instead of being a 2 buff Dispel and a Silence, it is now a 2-turn defense break on top of that, which that is a very scary proposition. Yes, it's only 75% chance, but having your entire team stripped, silenced, death broken is pretty backbreaking because, again, it's a 2-turn silence, so Handguy is not getting out of this. I think we're shifting towards a thing where Smilegate's design philosophy is to hose Handguy. I mean, again, we have things like Fumir coming out with the 2-turn sleep that can get around him. This 2-turn silence also gets around him. And I don't know if that's necessarily the way I want to go about it, because I think you're better off just nerfing Handguy rather than produce a bunch of characters that are incredibly crippling when they do their job. And honestly, changes to Benevolent Roman, seems like he's going to be pretty crippling if he actually does the thing that he is designed to do. Will he be meta? Probably not. But I do think he's a lot better. I am very scared of this character if I stare him down, because I am a slow player that usually uses Zeo to punish things like this, and I can no longer do that. So we'll see how Benevolent Roman pans out. I do think he is going to be definitely something that people try. Deity, I know he has recently come back full swing into streaming and content creation. I'll be curious to drop in on his streams to see if actually he's going to pick up Roman. And then finally for the characters, we have my girl, SERILA. I have heaped gushing praise onto this character for her PvE applications in the past. She is a budget-friendly character that has a slew of debuffs, making her good in a wide variety of content, from things like, for example, you could play her in Abyss, Challenge Abyss, Dagger Sakar. I have used her in Golem in the past. A good chunk of the Dagger Sakar quests, by the way, on my account were cleared by SERILA. I really enjoy playing this character, and I wish desperately for her to actually be someday usable in PvP, but that's not really going to happen. For PvP usage, she really needs some kind of survivability and possibly even some more speed for her to actually do her job. As far as PvE applications, she really needs something to distinguish herself from a character like Sirmia, who's kind of become basically the poster child for red characters when it comes to PvE content. Sirmia is now a free character with higher base stats, better multipliers, and honestly, a better RNG mechanic. Having the S1 dual attack chance on Sirmia provides some very, very high scores in things like Hall of Trials. SERILA can do that too with her exclusive equipment, but the rate at which it triggers, I think, needs to be quite a bit higher. So that is something that I would be looking forward to, as well as hoping that maybe like the exclusive equipment extra chance is actually a bit better. So what did we actually get on our witch waifu here? So they have made it so that Spirit Absorb, which is the S2, had its damage dealt increased, as well as the soul burn damage dealt increased. I don't know if necessarily the soul burn damage dealt increased carries over to the Awakened version. I don't know if this is like a typo. But that's kind of crazy because Spirit Absorb, in case you don't know, has a pretty high like multiplier on it. This is like a 1.5x multiplier, and it's over 2x on a soul burn already. And that's not the ultimate on the character. And it resets the cooldown if actually you secure a kill. And it heals SERILA, and it gives her an attack buff. And also, if you use the exclusive equipment, it has a chance to grant you an extra turn. So, like, there's already a nuts amount of value on Spirit Absorb on this character. It's one of the reasons why I really like it. It's got a debuff on, in addition to all that as well. So you're going to tell me you're going to up the damage on this thing? So if we up the damage, like, and we make it like 1.7 or 1.8, then SERILA's going to hit hard as hell. Not that she already doesn't anyway, because she has one of the highest attack scores for a 4-star in the game. So yeah, this is not what I was looking for, but it is an alright change. I'll take anything for SERILA at this point, because I felt like for the longest time, Smilegate has forgotten my girl. I've been asking for buffs for this character since I literally started making Epic 7 content. She is one of my favorite characters to play in the entire game. They also are changing the exclusive equipment. Previously, she would dispel 2 buffs on her S3, before she applies the burns on Flame Kiss. That was never used. Nobody played anything other than the extra turn exclusive equipment, if I'm being real with you. The other one, which gives you basically Vampiric Touch on the S3, also cool flavor, because she's a Halloween unit, right? Doesn't really do anything. So changing this exclusive equipment to give her a 100% defense break for 2 turns when she uses S3, yes, yes, yes. Oh my god. So SERILA actually did it. She has distinguished herself from Sirmia in a piece of PvE content. Because right now, we have Rift. And Rift requires you to play a team composition that has 1, a defense breaker, and 2, a slew of debuffs to make it so that the boss doesn't stack up. Well, our best option right now is Haste with 2 bleeds and a defense break at an 85% rate. You know what's better than 85% rate? 100%, baby. 100% chance to defense break the boss and 2 burn stacks. Basically, what I'm asking Smilegate is, where's my recall and haste? I wasted all these mullahs for nothing. Plus 15 SERILA, easy slot into Rift. Tristan, if you're watching, which waifu is going to be best in slot for Rift? Prove me wrong. I'll wait to see the math. I'm stoked for this, even if it only matters for the next, 3 months. Moving on to the artifacts now, we have Bastion of Perlucia, which is got the unenviable position of being a knight artifact, meaning that it competes with Aureus, Elbrus Ritual Sword, and Holy Sacrifice, which are all kind of just broken. So it needs to find some way to distinguish itself. So now, instead of granting immunity for 1 turn and a barrier to the ally with the highest attack, it now grants immunity to the wearer and the shield to the wearer, as well as immunity and the shield to the person in the back row, giving you quite a bit more control. This might be super useful on characters like Tywin, Troublemaker Crozet, or even Eaton. I think that these are the kinds of characters that would want to use this. I do think that there is something here to this. I just don't know exactly who you would really want to use it on outside of those 3. There doesn't seem to be too many other niche cases, in my opinion. So Aureus, Holy Sac, Elbrus probably still the mainstays for most knights, but I could definitely see, like I said, for those 3 knights in particular, Crozet, Troublemaker Crozet specifically, Eaton, and Tywin, Blue Tywin himself, they might get some value out of this. So, good buff. Just remains to be seen how good of a buff. Next, we move on to Durandal, and the only thing that I really would want out of this is exactly what it got, which is you get a combat readiness increase whenever you get hit, period, because if you don't go under 75%, you get nothing. And that sometimes has actually come up when playing Dark Corvus. So, yay, it's a slight buff to Dark Corvus and any other players that might actually put this on their characters. It's fine. It's nothing super crazy. And then the last thing we have changed here is we have changed the sleep debuff. Now, when you have a character slept, anybody attacking them previously would get a critical hit. Now, you not only get a guaranteed critical hit versus a sleeping opponent, you are guaranteed to hit them. Even if they have dodge chance, even if you are elemental disadvantage, you will hit them. And I think that that's a pretty good change because, honestly, Savior Odin's kind of a toxic character. I don't know if you've been paying attention to ladder right now, but if Briar Witch is banned, and then the opponent goes Savior Odin, Unbound Knight Arwell, Abyssal Euphine, that draft's that's a wrap. It's very difficult to beat that draft because there's just not a lot of counterplay to it. And so making it so that sleep in general is a counterplay to characters like Savior Odin is good. It gives Death Dealer Ray some value because he has a non-attack skill on Cloud of Death that sleeps. So that's one way to answer the character. We have Fumir coming up, obviously. Another way of doing it. And then the other character that I think is really, really good with this change, Shuna. I was already not somebody who didn't have Shuna geared right now. I was debating putting her back together. I kind of made the misread of thinking that she wasn't really that good anymore. Kind of missed having her. With this change, definitely want to have her. Again, I think she's going to be one of the premier Soul Weavers in the format because of the fact that she is a support slot that can answer Savior Odin, and a number of other characters. Obviously was already pretty decent against things like Remnant Violet. But Sleep being an answer to dodge units, pretty big deal in my opinion. And any non-attack skill user that can sleep is going to have quite a bit of value, I feel like, going forward into the PvP meta. So that's it. This is one of the balance patches of all time. It's really short and honestly a bit disappointing in some of the character choices. But hey, it's okay because SERILA got buffed. I'm at least happy about that. Oh, if I missed anything, let me know down in the comments below. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye now.